What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my college basketball week 17 top 25. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button to be entered into our giveaway. Starting from my drop from the rankings, Colorado State is the only team that drops from the rankings, and they're also in the others receiving votes after their loss last week. You have teams like Wisconsin and Florida and Houston and BYU in those Power Five conferences, also making the others receiving votes, looking to crack into the top 25. Then you have USF, a team that's finally getting some love in the AP poll. I just think I need another strong week to consider them into my top 25. Going 21-5 to this point so far in the season. It's February 26th, and they're playing pretty good basketball. The American Conference looks like they're going to put a few teams in the tournament this year, and USF looks to be one of those teams. 25 through 21, this is where you get some good teams. And New Mexico, 25, they're dropping 5 spots. Texas Tech dropping 2 spots. San Diego State dropping as well, where you have Utah State and Washington State both moving up. And you can see you got 3 Mountain West teams here. And I'm really high in the Mountain West this year. And then Texas Tech out of the Big 12. That loss at UCF was kind of concerning for me. I thought that would be a much closer game. And I did think they were going to lose, but by that fashion, didn't think that was going to happen. But the two things that surprised me the most this week were Washington State's win at Arizona. I think that was the biggest one for me. We'll get to the other one later in this video, but Washington State is getting their credit. 21-7, 12-5 in Pac-12 play is no joke this year with some very good teams. 20 through 16. This is another interesting one. And the second thing that was interesting to me is Baylor losing both of their games. And they were 2 tough games, I will say. But the game at Houston was a heartbreak in overtime. And then the game at BYU got away from them at the end. But Baylor, falling only 5 spots here just because they were some good teams. And they have at TCU and Kansas this week. And Baylor, they could fall to 19-11 or 19-10 and quickly be a team that's really fallen out of the top 4 seeds just because they're starting to fumble at the wrong time. We have Alabama as well getting blown out at Kentucky after their grueling win against Florida in OT. Nevada finds ways to keep on winning. They're starting to figure it out again. Same with South Carolina getting back on track, ending their little skid as they beat Ole Miss on the road. And then Dayton lost a tough one at George Mason early last week. Looks like they can get back on track this week. That conference that they are in, the A10, is no joke as well. Loyola Chicago, that'll be a tough matchup for them. And let's say Loyola wins that one, you might see Loyola jumping into the rankings and then Dayton falling out. 15 through 11, Kentucky moves up one with their win over Alabama in convincing fashion, even with a loss at LSU. And St. Mary's, a team that keeps on winning as well, 14-0 in conference play, meaning they've won at least 14 straight games, dating back all the way, I think, to 2023. They look to keep that streak going against Pepperdine and Gonzaga, 2 teams that have known to be good in the West Coast Conference in recent years. Lost at St. John's, and then early in the week, they beat the brakes off of the #1 team in the country, UConn. And I guess it's kind of expected for a letdown game after such a big win like that. But they got to get right this week at home. Seton Hall and Marquette are coming to town, 2 higher teams in the Big East. Auburn, easy win for them. They traveled to face Tennessee on the road. That's going to be a tough, tough game for them. And then Illinois as well. I think they're a team that could get bounced early in the tournament like they always do. It feels like they just kind of hang around. They're a good team, but we don't know what team you're going to get every night. 10 through 6, I think all these teams right now are interchangeable at any spot. North Carolina and Kansas, only 1 game last week, so they win and they stay. Duke, however, lost on the road at Wake Forest, but they did get a very convincing win at Miami, so they're only dropping 1 spot. And that's why I moved Marquette up 1, because they had 2 easy wins. But now they get Providence and that game at Creighton, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago. That's going to be a big one, not just for those 2 teams, but for Big East standings and tournament as well, just in 2 weeks. Then Arizona, that loss at Washington State, which I talked about earlier, was not concerning, but shocking to say the least, as they could have took a big lead in the Pac-12 if they would have won that one. And then they get Arizona State and Oregon this week, and they take care of business, but they might be back in the top 5 next week. 5 through 1, and I think you can make the case for 1, 2, and 3 after UConn's loss. Last week losing by 19 on the road to one of your better teams in the conference is a little cause for concern, but they responded very well with 24-point victory against Villanova at home. And I am moving them down one because Houston's last week, those teams they played were very good. Iowa State beat them by 8 at home. And Iowa State, obviously, you can see here on the side, I haven't got to them yet. They're at 5. And then that win in OT at Baylor. It's very convincing when you can go on the road, win an OT in a tough environment, and then also be the top 5 team at home in the same week is tough to do, to say the least. And that means this team is getting battle tested in back-to-back games, just like March Madness and Houston, the Cyclones, Marquette. I think those are my 3 teams I'm looking at right now that I think are going to cut down the nets in March. But obviously, we still got February left, and there's that team right there in the middle, Purdue, that I think is looking for that revenge story. Obviously, last year losing to the 16 seed and now putting themselves in a good position for the 1 seed. They get Michigan State at home this week. That should be a good game because Michigan State is on that bubble right now, looking to get into the tournament. That should be a good one as long as Edey can dominate. They should win that one at home. And then Tennessee as well. They're kind of going on the Houston path from last week. If Tennessee can win both of these games here against 2 ranked teams in the conference, not only will they establish themselves as probably a top seed entering March, they're probably going to be the 1 seed in the SEC tournament as well. It's a big week for the Volunteers. And then the Cyclones of Iowa State, that tough loss at Houston, but they rebounded well with a win at home against West Virginia. And then Oklahoma and at UCF. I think the at UCF game will be a challenge for them. I don't think they'll lose, but I think it will come down to the wire. That's going to be it for the Week 17 Top 25. Check back next week to see if your team makes the cut. But until next time, the Bench Buddies are out.